Welcome to Softcock Appreciation Week 2024. I invite you to get comfortable as you join us for what I like to call cockversations, discussions, or grown folk putting their heads together and sharing ideas in authentic and real ways. Now be aware we don't hold back in our language, and what follows is not for overly sensitive or easily kerfuffled ears. And before we dive in, remember, what is shared here is not meant to be, nor is it a replacement for medical advice. Whenever you notice changes in your body or that of a loved one, especially in how the penis is functioning, please seek out medical consultation. What the penis is saying could literally save a life. Thank you for supporting us. If you take away something useful from this, please let us know, write a review, spread the word, and keep coming back for more. Are you ready? Let's do it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Softcock Appreciation Week 2024. I am your new hostess, Erica Leroy, and I am so happy to be here, to be celebrating with you, to have you listen, watch, however it is you're turning on with us. Softcock Appreciation Week, in its third year, is a celebration of male sexuality, human sexuality, and the understanding that no matter how you show up for intimacy and play, there are so many wonderful things that can happen. We don't need hardness in order to have connection, whether that's with ourselves or with partners. And at the same time, knowing that sometimes the way a penis doesn't show up is, or partially shows up, is letting us know that there may be something else for us to be paying attention to. Like the cock crowing in the morning to tell us, pay attention, a new day is here. That sometimes the human cock similarly can be telling us, hey, something's going on. Maybe it's physical, maybe it's mental, maybe it's spiritual. We can both enjoy however we show up and learn how to listen to our bodies. So I'm very excited this year to bring back Mish Middelmann, who was a featured guest last year in 2023 Softcock Appreciation Week. And we met during the final closing panel discussion and really found some kindredness during that conversation, and then continued to have conversation together through email and some video dates, and discovered that one of our mutual interests and passions comes in the world of the creative process, and also really trying to understand and seek out, why is there not more soft cock focused erotica out there in the world? So that's what we're going to be talking about this year. I really encourage you to go back at some point and listen to last year's conversation, which is a lot more about Misha's story, about your journey, Mish, through prostate cancer and the work that you do with Recovering Man. And I'm going to have you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about that, and then we'll dive in together. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Erica. It's fabulous to be back here, and it's great to be up here with you. And, the obvious introduction is, I'm the proud owner of a soft cock. I'm glad that every now and then these days it gets hard again, and I can't deny, and I want to be clear that as we're talking about the joys of soft cocks, we're not trying to knock hard ones. They're fun, and for the owner and often for others. But like you said, feel like my soft cock has woken me and my partner up to all sorts of new possibilities. And this big research puzzle that we kind of set for me a year ago, which was go find out why there's no soft cock erotica out there. So I'm really looking forward to sharing some of that and sharing our separate and different experiences with this genre, if you like.
Yes, me too. I know. So what happened was, you brought this up last year. You said, I'm noticing in my own experience that there's very little representation. And I get that a lot when I'm working with men in my work, that what I often will hear is, well, Erica, I don't really believe you that partners are okay with me not being rock hard or not showing up with an erection, because if that were true, there would be more porn that shows this. There would be
Right.
erotica that I could listen to or read that shows that. And so clearly that's something you're okay with, but the rest of the world is not. And so I'm still carrying that as a weight. And I really appreciated that where you were coming from was like, let's see what's out there, and
Right.
let's potentially be part of the change. So inspired by you, this year during Softcock Appreciation Week on Saturday, November 16th, we're doing a Softcock Erotica open mic in order to encourage people to help bring more of this deliciousness around what what imagery can be, what the imagination can offer, what the fantasies can be, that, like you said, maybe has some penetration if that's a piece of it, but that it's not centered on that. So I'm really encouraging people who are watching and listening also to take from this conversation the invitation and the inspiration to dive in and see if you get a little bit juicy out of this conversation to maybe help us by creating some more and bringing more out into the world. So before we go deeper into this, Mish, will you just talk a little bit for people who didn't meet you last year, a little bit about your personal journey to being a
Yeah.
proud owner of a soft cock?
Mm. You know, for about, I don't know, 55 years or something like that, I had a cock that was hard, like many of them, like most of the time, and often kind of inappropriate times. And,
Mm.
I loved it, but there were times when it was like a little too much. And my partners were also like, this is a little too much. And when I turned 60, I forget, round about 60, anyway, 61, I think, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And when they told me, well, it might have an effect on your erectile function if you have the treatment, I was like, well, I'll be the lucky one. I'll be fine.
Mm.
And I was completely shocked after I'd had the treatment, which I'm glad to say has, um, so far, there's no sign of the cancer in me since that happened, since that treatment. Um, it did take away my erectile function,
Mm.
quite severely for a year or two, and then it's been kind of wobbling back and forth. And sometimes it stands up, and other times it lies down, up and down like a jack in the box a lot of the time,
Okay.
and not really reliably hard in the sort of way that makes a hard penis such a good sex toy. Um, just every now and then able to kind of get all excited, but for short periods. So that's my sort of medical story. And it was only the second time in my life I'd had erectile dysfunction. Like I'd had it when I was 50 something for a week or two, and I was like really stressed. But
Mm.
it kind of recovered, luckily, within a week or two. So, so yeah, I've now had this 5-year period to really experience it, um, being a little older and therefore a little more patient, and also without this sort of blame game. Like, there wasn't this whole story of like, there's something wrong with my head. It was like, no, I had surgery and it messes with the nerves. And so I think that made it easier. But the reason I'm telling people about it is that it doesn't matter why your cock is soft.
Mm.
It just is that. And it can still be a thing of great joy and beauty and fun and pleasure.
Mm. Beautiful, beautiful. And also, realistically, men are walking around soft most of the time, right? So part of this too is
That's what you're thinking.
okay, well, with some exceptions.
Yeah.
But in the course of day-to-day life, right? The penis is generally not invited to be turned on, to be part of, I like to call the penis a sensory antenna,
Mm.
right? And that there is a sort of having to numb down that sense, the connection to the sensory world, because otherwise it's, oh, there's some boobs, and oh, that's a nice sweater, and oh, that's a nice smell. And, that can really, our society doesn't really want our men to be walking around in a semi erect or erect state all of the time. And so there's a lot of time for softness, and there's an honoring as part of what we're doing here too, which is that I think overall there's an energy in the world of a man has to be hard in lots of different ways, not
Mm.
just in how they show up for sex. And so part of what we're doing too is honoring, and I think that's a piece of this creative process as well, is honoring the many ways that softness can show up and be delectable and sultry and sexy. And it's one of the things that I appreciate about you is that you have you have the hard chiseledness of your sexiness, and you also have an inner way of connecting to what you have had to go through, both in your health and in the transformation. Not every man that I've met who's gone through prostate cancer is able to get to a place of body acceptance and kind of cross the bridge to now there's still things that are opportunities for me. So I just wanted to really acknowledge and name how important it is and how beautiful it is that you did that. You crossed the threshold and have things to share, and that you do, through Recovering Man, really give people the invitation to be vulnerable
Mm.
and authentic as well. So thank you for that work you do in the world.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So where we left off last year was you were going to go on a journey to explore the wide world of the web and see what exists and what is out there, and where do soft cocks get venerated. Or I think a lot of the only porn that I know of that's out there that is soft cock centered tends to be humiliation based, right? Which is not really what we're going
Mm.
for. So tell us a little bit about this journey.
Yeah. I mean, just to start there, I don't want to knock the humiliation-based stuff. Some
Mm-hmm.
people, that's their kink. And if it gives you pleasure, I don't want to knock it.
Yes.
But you're right that I went to, like, one of my favorite sites, the Erotica site, that's all written stories. And I searched on the tag Softcock, and I got 16 articles, of which maybe 5 were actually about softcocks, and the rest, they just somehow happened to pick that up in their algorithm. So out of, I don't know, 5 million stories or something, they're effectively none. And in preparing for this call, I went onto some of the standard sort of video porn hubs and such likes. Same deal. There are like 100,000 million hard cocks for every one soft one.
Mm.
The soft ones are it's often a bit sort of clinical, or it's just the prelude. It's like, look how cool it is the way this thing grows. And I mean, it is cool. It is amazing how much as men we change shape. I mean, it's amazing. But there was almost nothing saying, and this was kind of a lot of my starting point. Like, when I look at anybody I find sexy, but particularly women, there's something in soft curves that is voluptuous and inviting and powerful. And I went, hang on, isn't that true of me too? Isn't the curve of a big, thick, heavy, soft cock also voluptuous and powerful and sexy and promising and inviting? And
yes. Yes.
no, I don't think anybody's really doing anything about that. People are not writing about it. People are not making movies about it. There are a few more photographs. I think photographs, and the one place I have found where a lot more men are coming out about this is in the sort of peer-to-peer sites. There's one called FetLife, which is really built around kinkiness. And it encompasses everyone, actually. And in that, there's a large number, particularly of the older men, where it's more of an issue, right, are quite happily showing themselves partially aroused or fully aroused, but their idea of fully aroused is still soft. And I've actually written to a few of them and said, is this as hard as it gets? But not in a shaming way, just like, I'm curious. And they've said, no, this is as hard as it gets, but I'm having a lot of fun. And I enjoy showing myself to people out there. So what I'm saying is there's little chinks of people that are going, you know what? This is what I've got, and I'm going to flaunt it. Which again has always been a turn on for me when my partner flaunts whatever they've got. And I don't think I ever realized, oh, I can do that too.
Yeah.
And it's one of the paybacks for this exploring a new body is to learn new abilities and new sources of joy.
Do you think, I mean, first, let me just take that in because that really is, I mean, again, I'm so appreciative of the men that I have met where often because of health, right? Whether it's diabetes or prostate or hypertension, cardiovascular, where the penis just isn't the main attraction in the way it used to be, but that something happens where body acceptance does come in, and that there's whether and there's a new joy, that there's a joy in the discovery. One of our taglines this year is changing the D in ED from dysfunction and disappointment to discovery and delight.
Wow.
Right.
Lovely.
Because
Lovely.
that to me is the bridge. Is first there is a process of discovery, and then coming to this place, the discovery meaning, who am I now? What is possible now? What does turn me on? How am I experiencing pleasure that's the same or different? And then being able to land in the delight of just, hey, I can still feel no matter what the function is. Right? That maybe I'm more aware of the orgasmic quality versus the blood intensity quality. From your exploration of going on this quest and looking for more representation and not seeing very much, and even in what you're saying, it's still a small bit of a large pool. Do you think that is because I'm going to ask a question and you can say it's completely different than this, but is it harder for men to come to body acceptance?
I think, one of the things I realized having it taken away is just how much my life as a man was shaped by my penis and my erections in particular, that it's such an overwhelming part of my sexuality as a man. And it's so much fun that it kind of tends to bleach everything out into sort of, I have nipples and I have this and I have that. But like, this is the thing that matters. And that sort of hard, lustful, sexual thrusting penetration is so much fun that it often makes everything else pale into insignificance. And I think, that's just my personal story is I wasn't so good at realizing all the other possibilities because there was this so-called low-hanging fruit, to mix my metaphors. High-reaching fruit that was just so much fun. And I think that the soft cock invites the owner as well as the owner's partner to feel the breadth and the depth. And I think you pointed us a bit there. If you think, anybody listening to us thinks of cupping any sexual part of any person with your hand and not doing anything, just holding it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the most exquisite experience, and there's such an explosion of joy and erotic and emotional and spiritual energy that flows through, a breast or an ass or a pair of balls or a vulva or whatever you happen to be cupping. And to discover that can happen to a penis is a huge revelation, because it's not what an erect one really seems to be asking for. But it's amazing. And all the power that is there. I mean, what I think is that the hard erection masks all the other layers of experience and communication that are going on. And they all get sort of subsumed into this one great thing. But when you take away the hardness, everything else is still there.
Yeah.
And all that exchange of energy, of love, of desire, of pleasure is absolutely still there, even when it's not hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as you're describing this, to me, this is erotica. The whole way that you just described, it was so easy to visualize being with somebody, feeling into your words and your description that, yes, this is true, which really goes back to our theme of why do we need this, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
those of us who can share with others a way to vision. One of the things that's so interesting for me when I do masturbation coaching is that a lot of the men that I work with, where I'll start is, can you remember a time that you did have good sex with yourself or somebody else? Can you, because oftentimes they're stuck in a place of, I'm not happy with how my body is working, right? So we have to start with, do you remember, can you go back into a memory and then feel in your body, right? Like, maybe they'll say, oh, I remember this time in a car, right?
Mm.
And my partner put their hand on my thigh and I felt myself swell. And there's the thinking about it, and then there's the can we build that memory up? What do you remember about the car? Was there a song on the radio? Like, let's build the scene. And then remember, your body actually did that. You were there. That happened. And can we use that memory? And then often, 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, as we build that memory, I'll say, what's happening in your genitals, right? Oh, I can feel some swelling. It may not be that the cock is getting big. It might be in the balls. It might be in the perineum. It might be in the ass, but that the tissue there is being invited to remember, yeah, I did that,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And then out of building that vision and that memory, then can we also imagine into what it could still be, right? What's the imagination? And I bring this up because part of my interest in what you have been exploring is that what I see is there's kind of a crisis, especially in men, around the capacity for imaginative thinking,
Mm.
that we have
Mm.
gotten very logical. I don't know if it's part of our, a lot of engineering, a lot of like what it is, but that often when I'll say, can you imagine yourself having a delicious sexual experience? That the first answer is, I don't know how to imagine that.
Right. Right.
Right. And then
Well,
when we
thank
break it
you for
down, they
that.
can.
Yeah, thank you for that. I feel like you're making the case for getting away from a kind of one-dimensional sexuality. And I think that erect penises are a bit one-dimensional. They know what they want and they're going to go for it. And they've kind of sucked a lot of the rest of us into a pretty one-dimensional sexuality. And I have
Mm,
to say, in this research, I was struck by how much conventional porn is so mechanistic and
Say
so
more about
just
that.
pounding away. It's just sort of pounding away. And a lot of erotic writing is really just a catalog of all the things you did or you had done to you. And I think that some kinds of sex are so exciting that literally just telling somebody that you did this, that you stuck this in there and rubbed it and pounded away is exciting and memorable. But I think what you just have been speaking to and calling for, and I really support that, is what if we brought our full imagination back? And what if we
Mm,
brought our whole bodies back rather than just one or two body parts? Um, isn't that a much more enjoyable, but also more resilient way of making love? Because as we've said, the very conventional heterosexual lovemaking is very much built around, somebody having a space and somebody else having a thing they're going to stick in there, and 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 when that doesn't work, and there's a million reasons why that might not work, and not
mm-hmm.
all to do with innocence, then often people, and I know so many people from my work around prostate cancer, so many people are so stuck and so bereft. I'm bereft too, I have to say.
Mhm.
And then there's this possibility of imagining alternatives. And I think why we need softcock erotica is to open up an integrated and integrative, imaginative sexuality that includes our whole bodies and our
Yes.
whole hearts and minds and spiritualities as well, because actually this stuff is functioning at all those levels all the time. And we might just
Mhm.
be mesmerized by the one dimension of it.
Right. Mesmerized and habituated
Yes,
too,
yes.
right? That
Yeah.
it's kind of it's easy because it's what we know as opposed to this
Yes,
imaginative quality of being able to imagine what else there is, which is really part of why Michelle started Softcock Week, right? Was to
right.
say, hey, let's more actively lay the whole buffet on the table so that we can get out of that penetration mindset and just
Yes.
offer up, that there's more. So what else did you find? So you went to Literotica, you went to FetLife, and you did some search on like the traditional
Yeah.
available porn hubs, and what else did you discover?
I didn't find very much just being served up there for us. But because I also went inward into my own life and went, so where are the starting points, the sort of building
Mm,
blocks of this? And I kind of go, well, first of all, every kind of soft cock is fun. I mean, like from the tiniest little itty bitty one. I mean, who doesn't love a clitoris, And the smallest cock is pretty similar to a big clitoris.
mhm.
It's small and it's concentrated, intense energy, and it's very sensitive. And a big, a big swinging dick is also an amazing thing that's sort of soft and movement. And I did find there's an amazing video clip out there that's worth searching for of like 100 men running across a field naked. Probably all porn stars because they're better hung than I am, I can say. But these huge, big, soft cocks just flopping in slow motion as they run in the most, I mean,
Mhm.
depending on you, it might be erotic or amusing, but it's a
Oh, I
sight
loved
to
it.
be,
You shared it with me and I loved it. Yeah. It's so
it's a sight
beautiful.
to behold. So
Mhm.
what I sort of found is the raw material is there. This thing feels good to the owner. And from this, I haven't been experimenting so much with who else I've been sharing mine with, but my partner has made it clear that she's still enjoying it. And that it's still capable of this range from stuff around that's focused on the penis to shared penetrative sex. You can get quite a soft thing inside,
Mhm.
at least a vagina. Anal penetration needs a little bit more firmness, but, you know, with a bit of help and fingers and sort of feeding this thing,
Yeah.
the raw material is there for sexual pleasure. If you want it to be genital, and as we've already said, there's infinite potential for the rest of our bodies. And
Exactly.
that sort of got me going to thinking, so how are people enjoying sex in the absence of an erection? And I mean, one whole group of people that have been doing this since time immemorial is lesbians. I mean, there's not a hard cock between them, and you know, no problem there, having fun and being sexual. Um, and I think that I've talked quite a lot to transgender people, and a lot of the again the sort of porn conception of trans women is sort of the she-male kind of thing,
Mhm.
who kind of have sort of the best of male and the best of female as well. I think that's often the attraction to men anyway. But a lot of people I've talked to have said, well, you know what, the hormones really mess with these things, and you can't so easily have all things to all people. And erectile function
Yeah.
tends to get messed up by the hormones. So I think there are people out there experimenting. And I mentioned the FetLife men who are flaunting themselves. I think there's a groundswell of men experimenting, and their partners of all genders experimenting, and inevitably embracing a greater vulnerability. And a greater, I have to say to the guys listening, it is a greater complexity. the penis is well designed to get off in whatever it takes you, 1.5 minutes or 3 minutes or
Mhm.
whatever, you know? Yeah, true. But I mean, do you want your life to be made up of only 2 or 3 minute little spurts, you know? What about hours of lovemaking? And
Yeah.
without a lot of chemicals and mechanics, men are not designed to be super hard for hours and hours. And certainly as we get older, we're not. So I guess what I'm finding is this raw material of a kind of fountain of possibility and joy that's sitting out there,
Mhm.
that just is waiting for us to be brave enough to enjoy it, to brave. And yes, we do have to brave the humiliation, the kind of limp dick jokes, or
Mhm.
the kinky humiliation is a little different because that's people embracing it. But the more public part is, I can remember people when they heard I had prostate cancer, they started making limp dick jokes, and they thought they were being funny, but it isn't funny.
Mm.
So that is the first thing you encounter when you have a a soft cock is the public view. And honestly, I just think it's time for us men to embrace our complexity, to embrace our ability to be more than one-dimensional sexual animals. And I think goes along with that, embrace our vulnerability. Doesn't mean we become weak or soft, but just that vulnerability is also part of the deal.
And I'll tag on to that as you're saying it, that I think that where vulnerability comes in is also then it becomes the lead into curiosity, right? Because we
Yeah.
can be vulnerable by allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, truly vulnerable. We can either be vulnerable in a state of anxiety and fear, or have more of that cortisol, adrenaline type of energy. So when I went through menopause, I had a year where my clitoris completely changed. It recessed.
Mhm.
All of the sensation that I thought was like, I know every little spot. This is my go to. I can get off like this. Everything changed. And, I was like, oh shit, this is what the men in
Yeah.
my life are experiencing. I like had this physical
Yeah.
shift of my libido dropped, but also there was a physical, and I went through a period of frustration and I went through a period of grief. And then, thanks to my Buddhist mother, I had in my mind, but we can approach this as beginner's mind,
Yeah.
right? And I did have to go through some mourning of this is what was easy. And this is what I often hear from the men I work with is shit, the thing that I'm really coming up against in addition to the physical is this was the thing I never really had to think about.
Mm.
Right? I didn't have to think about what turned me on. I didn't have to
Mm.
think about this. It was just like it showed up. I knew what to do with it. And now you're asking me to have consciousness,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so, going through that place of how to begin, how to start again, how to be curious,
Yeah.
how to be
Mm.
open to the discovery. And, again, this leads me into why representation matters. Because if there isn't, the reality is that porn and, and written and audio erotica is the majority of how people get their sex education.
Mm.
So when we look at the statistics, just the straight statistics of a market, and we say, 50% of people, if 50% of men around the age of 50 are going to start having some kind of erectile change, whatever that spectrum is. And then we say, if that's true, then also the people who partner them are going to be experiencing that too. Then why wouldn't there be a lot more in the adult entertainment market that shows how to enjoy our bodies and describes how to enjoy our intimacy when those changes naturally occur? But we're not there yet.
No, we're not. I have to say that whenever I see somebody slowing it down on these various sites I've been browsing, I'll write a little comment saying, lovely to see you taking your time. Um,
Mm.
I just wanted to say that there was a moment where you spoke where I just sort of felt my tummy suddenly drop. And I just wanted to sort of invite you who are listening to us to just take a couple of deep breaths.
Mm.
because I think we are speaking about something deeper and a little slow.
Mm. Thank you.
And there's a frenetic, just let it be over there somewhere, that frenetic porn stuff that's like always on.
Mm.
And yes, there is a loss. And that's sometimes what gets us to slow down, is the loss. That which was easy and quick and frenetic has been taken away. Yep. Having let it be taken away, notice what remains.
Mm.
And you described that so beautifully, noticing what remained, and that this clitoris that had changed, and this body that had changed, and this libido that had changed, and you talked about withdrawing, that it didn't disappear. For some
Mm-hmm.
people it does, and that can happen. But for many of us, and it seems like you and I are two of those, it 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 withdraws like the tide, and then the tide comes back in, but it fills those pools in a different way to the last tide. And I feel like the gift of this is the ability to savor. Um,
Mm.
I love making it every level, which includes the sexy sexual stimulation level, but also the emotion and the human connection and relationship, and I think connection to the earth and the stars, which,
Mm.
I mean, I think every good sexual encounter goes way beyond just the two of us that are doing it.
Your language, it just really moves just deep into my my whole core. The way that you describe just this essence of human connection is so beautiful, and really is exemplary of what it is that we're talking about, because it's not just the act of doing it, but it's the ability to, I want to say, it's not just recall, but there is an element in which, because you pay attention to what it is that you're experiencing in the moment, right? Which is an interesting thing to be able to do, right? To be able to be present in your lovemaking, in your intimacy, in anything that we do, to be present, but also to be able to then recollect in a way that is savoring,
Mm,
that is was me, that was my beloved, that was special,
mm,
and I want to mark that. I mean, for me as an erotic writer and as a creative being, as someone who makes erotic media, so much of the way that I approach it is from this place of, how do I find the words? How do I find the language so that what happened isn't just what what you were talking about before, which is, there's one way to describe things, which is the hand was here, the knee was there, the ass
mm,
opened like this, I made this
mm,
sound, they made this sound. But to be able to sort of transform an experience, so with the way that we language it, so that it even goes more into that earth and stars connection, that it takes the
yeah,
individual and turns it more accessible to the commonality. When I identify in the part of me that identifies as a erotic artist, what I think about is I am part of a lineage that we know has existed through all of
yes,
humanity, right? The cave paintings had images of people
absolutely.
making love, right? And that there have always been people who have taken up the path to either paint, draw or dance or make, plays or movies or write or somehow mark through creative expression that the erotic self is a part of our human self.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, I mean, just to pick up on what you're speaking about, like some tips for all of you out there who are going to come on Saturday and share your erotic creations. I mean, the first thing I would say is just tell it like it is,
Mm.
and make exquisite observation. As Erica just said, not just I put it there and he put it there, and but what was I imagining? And even if my genitals were doing this, what was happening in my shoulders and my fingertips and my toenails while that was going on? And slow it all down. I think that's the biggest thing. And I do think that conventional sexuality, part of the fun is the rush. Well, guess what? We're not knocking the rush and lustful, fast, hot sex, but we're saying, and what else?
Mm-hmm.
For that, what else? The slowing down is a necessary part so that you can notice the smells and the tastes and the sounds and the feelings all over and beyond your body. So the noticing everything needs to be all of everybody involved in the story's sexual parts, all of every other part of their bodies, all of their hearts, all of their minds, and what's happening in the room and in the sky. Because frankly, all good sex, you remember that. I bet you do. I certainly remember like the hottest times. I can remember the way the sun was beating down on us. I can remember looking over the hills. I can remember the tent and the way it felt being in the tent and the water running by in the stream. That's part of the sex. It's all living things in some way engaging with each other in a way that generates joy and delight.
I want to put you on the spot a little bit,
Mm.
if that's okay.
Mm.
And you could say no to this. But
Yeah.
with that as a pointer, because it was a really beautiful pointer, I want to freestyle a little bit with you
Mm.
because you brought up earlier how it is possible to have like a soft cock penetration experience.
Yes.
And that's something that that often is asked, right? Like, how do you do that? How is that
Right.
possible? And there's a way
Right.
that we could talk about that that's more clinical, that's more,
Yeah.
right? We
Person
could do that.
and bend that way and all that stuff. Yeah.
Right, right. But I'm curious if you were to describe, if you were to do like a little free form, and you started to do this in your description, so I'm just going to enhance it. But if you were to switch it from how do I do this to here is some soft cock erotica that features this.
Well, I put this on the spot, right?
I am putting
Well,
you
I
on the
mean,
spot.
yeah. It's good to, when people give advice, it's good to say, just please follow that. So tell it exactly like it is. So in this moment, I feel this very soft and extremely delicate tip of me sort of unfurling against, and I'm going to be heterosexual here, just because that's kind of been the framing here, I think, um, against your soft, wet folds and just the beginning of a hint of your bump as well. And there's some way in which all of these sensitive bits are just sliding and our fingers go down and rub, and
Mm,
we're always sure whose finger is rubbing whose tip because they're sort of merging. But then I notice a bit of swelling
mm,
in myself, and I let my finger slide a little further down, and there's a hollow there, and there's some. It's like this ancient opening to all the wisdom and all the beauty of the world that's calling me. And there's some part of me that is,
mm,
wanting to find, wanting to enter this wonderful cave, but it doesn't, can't run in there. I don't know what it is, but I can't run into this cave. I can
mm,
only sort of grow into this cave.
mhm.
And I guess you and I realized this and start sort of prodding a little bit to get just the tip inside. And it's it's weird because I don't actually know. And you've often said you don't have that many nerve endings inside either. So neither of us quite knows how far in
Mm.
I am.
Mm.
But there's an intake of breath that says something is happening. And it takes patience now, because the minute we even ask that question of what's happening, I feel myself shrink.
Mm. Mm.
So there's this, and you, Erica, have commented on this subtle indicator that's saying, are you really here with me? Are you really here, or are you thinking about performance? And in that moment, it fades away, and we go back to just hugging each other and
Mm.
feel our chests pushing against each other. I feel the hearts beating together.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's
I
happening
really felt
there.
that. Right. I really felt that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Mm. Mm.
That wasn't very untriumphant, but that's just what happened in that story, right? You
Right.
create characters and then they live.
Exactly.
Um,
Beautiful.
so those body parts just did what they did, and I didn't have much say in what happened other than
Mhm.
through my mouth.
Yeah. Beautiful. So I would like to give myself the same challenge, if that's okay with you.
Yay! Thank you.
Okay.
Please do.
Yes. Okay. Good. So I'm putting myself on the spot too. And I'll give an example because I think sometimes when we're trying to engage and create erotica, like for me, sometimes it's easier for me to do this in third person. So I'm gonna try
Okay.
it in third person and
Right.
see kind of where I go. So I think I'll start this way. She has been thinking all day about his softness. As she sat at her desk, typing away, another email here, another email there, she noticed that her labia was starting to swell just slightly in her chair, reminding her that there was a date that was coming soon, that when the workday was over, this beautiful, soft penis that she has come to love and adore so deeply would be hers for the evening. And as she came to a place where she could stop the work that she was doing in that moment, her head busy with busyness of the day, she took a few minutes to pay attention to what was happening in her body. She sat back in her chair and imagined her hand reaching out and cupping and holding the soft, swelling member that wasn't going to get any bigger, but that still had an animation, that
Mm.
still had a receptivity to her touch. Her nerve endings, his nerve endings, a passage of energy between them, hand to cock, fingertips on shaft. And then she could feel between her legs her clitoris starting to swell. And she sat back in her chair, imagining how later she would lay before him, spread and open, inviting him to place the softness in the folds of her vulva, feeling the connection as she enveloped him just as he is. The tip, the frenulum, rubbing close onto her clitoris, knowing that that sensation alone, her touching, tapping like Morse code on the backside of his coronal head, tapping it like a small vibration against her, allowing her to have ripples and waves of pleasure release. She breathes in the recollection and imagines opening, taking her hands, sliding down and expanding her own cavernous opening so that she can create space for the softness to come in, that it is not on him to get hard, but on her to open and invite. And in that invitation, she recalls and imagines simultaneously the way that his snaky sinuousness can explore just in the entry, hanging there together, discovering together where the delicious sensation of connectivity exists within the softness, within the acceptance that this is not only enough, but this is delight. Something like that.
Well done.
Thank you,
That
thank
was
you, thank you.
fabulous.
Thank you, thank you. But right, like, I think what we both are exploring is really that I love the cue that you gave, which is to slow down, right? To slow down the imagination, to slow down the language, to slow down and allow that, because it's like recalling, and, whether that's recalling a way you played with yourself, a way you played with a partner, a way you played with multiple partners, whatever it is that you do, that, even if you haven't tried these things yet, you've tried something. So begin with, the quality of a touch, or even doing that to yourself. How would you describe, a hand across the cheek?
And what does it feel like? And I think we both tried to share a bit of that. What does it feel like when you are playing with these soft bits, whether they're attached to your own body or your partner's body? And what's possible for you? And where does the delight emerge with that slowing down? And I feel like, there's an infinity of places that can go. And I felt so aware of just doing this on the spot, and, it has its limitations, but there's no limit on your imagination as you imagine your own sexual liberation and as you maybe create your own erotica. And, I'm looking forward to you sharing some of that next week, because we're going to have fun.
Yes.
And and we've kind of broken the ice by doing it, imperfectly. So don't put us up on a pedestal, but don't put yourself down. You can do something cool. And I think, I don't know what you find, Erica, but I think there's this question around, how do you stimulate your erotic imagination, and how far do you share it? I don't know what you found about that, but it might be helpful just to talk about our experiences sharing this kind of thing.
Do you want to start?
Okay. I mean, I was inviting you to start, but I'll go since I suggested. I kind of persuaded my partner to share more erotica with me, and we found it's incredibly variable. Like, some things that turn me on don't turn her on, and vice versa, and some turn us both on, and it's amazing when it turns us both on. And I wrote to one of the authors and said, this is what happened after we read your story. And the guy said, oh man, thank you. I never get that
Mm.
feedback. So that was really cool. And then there's publishing it, and my website publishes lots of not fiction stories, but real life stories of people's experiences with bodily changes, particularly related to prostate cancer. Um, but I have started experimenting with these platforms that allow you to publish. And when I look at what's out there, there's everything from these little chat groups, which just ask the question, so do you or don't you like soft cocks? What do you like about them or what don't you like about them? And that, I'm inviting you all to kind of go to those sort of places. But you can also go much further and you can take pictures, and you can go much further and you can take video, and you can write stories, and you can publish these stories, and you can publish them completely anonymously. And I've sort of experimented with all of this, and I have written a few stories, and it is exciting when people write back and say that made a difference in me. So, this is encouragement.
Mm.
But what about you, Erica?
Yeah, that's such a profound question for me because I was one of those girls who always kind of wrote erotica. That was something from a young age. I was very already embodied. I liked exploring writing that way. I started reading Cosmo when I was young and really enjoyed
Oh,
reading the stories in there and having that erotic information and imagination. I grew up going to art museums. I didn't want to be the artist. I wanted to be the naked woman they painted, right? And I think part of I'm going to say more about that piece of sharing, but I want to say something because I think we're kind of touching around it.
mm-hmm.
Just doing that little gesture, makes me. I love touching around things.
Yes, please.
Yes. um, is also, part of what we're talking about on the edge is about accepting a quality of, for some people it's a kink, which is, exhibitionism and voyeurism. And this world of erotica is at its essence, whether we're watching traditional porn or reading something or creating something, there is an element of acknowledging that what is the part of wanting to be the one being watched or listened to or heard, and what is the part of wanting to be the one observing, and how is observation or being the more passive or receptive person still taking in the energy that the person is offering, right? I mean, I think that's one of the challenges about some types of adult erotic media is that the way people interface with it, it's observational in a way that isn't allowing the energy to actually really impact the body. Like one of the things, and again, I'm a little tangential here, but I'll circle back. But one of the things that sometimes I see in the work that I do is that the experience of looking for the porn that will turn you on is that's a quest. I'm going on a hunt today to find something. It's a very, dopamine likes a quest. I'm so into the looking for it that when I actually find it, it's not a really high quality orgasm that I have. Right? That the pleasure centers of the
Yeah.
body are more in the, ooh, what's that? Oh, no, that's
Yes.
not it. Ooh,
Yeah.
what's that? Oh, no, that's
And
not
it's
it.
like,
Oh, is that it? And then maybe I finally find something. But when I find the thing and then start to stroke or then start to rub, it's kind of a
yeah.
quality orgasm. And so that's why I do encourage people, when you find something, to make your catalog or have your little link list or whatever, so that then you can go back, not in the energy of I'm here on the dopamine high of can I find it, but I've got it, and now let me actually really look at those boobs or look at that dick or look at that ass or look at that scene,
Yeah.
and really allow my body to respond, or let me listen to this audio, and
Yes.
in its fullness, because I'm making the space for this. So I just wanted to kind of lay that little piece
Great.
of it out.
Very wise. Yes. Thank
So my own experience is, um, I mean, first of all, I've been filming myself masturbating for over 16 years now, almost every single time, either filming it or audio recording it.
Amazing.
And most of it I haven't put out into the world, right? Most of it has been for me, my partner. It's really been my creative process because it's really been about me and my pussy.
Mm.
Because it really started as a journey after my second marriage when I was coming out of my identity that was so strongly connected to wife and mother. And
Mm.
I wanted, like I was saying, I was always this like erotic girl, that
Yes.
it was more about how do I get back to her.
Yes.
And so the exploration was really more for me, and for my partner, right? Like, he was the muse, right? Like, he was the inspiration by saying, send me something, right? And then I would be inspired, like, oh, sometimes we need a coach or we need someone who says, I like it when you do this. The author Milan Kundera had a term he used called graphomania, I believe it was,
Mm.
which is I only write if I know someone will read me. So it's
Right.
interesting because like my video work, I have not really put out into the world, although I do think that will be coming soon. But my written work, I do have more of a, you know, I'm more inclined to sit and write if I know someone's going to read. So that I like to
Right.
share. And I have a
Right.
friend who had an erotic open mic, a monthly erotic open mic that she ran for years that I liked to go to. For that one, I would give myself a challenge. One of the things I love in my films is to then go through my films, and because it's all digital, and then pull still shots off of it. Because rather than posing, which often feels mechanical for me and I can't get the energy, if I just film myself in pleasure, then I
Mm.
can find some really, really hot, delicious moments that translate through the screen energetically because they're authentic. So I would take a photograph and then give myself the challenge of, like, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I'm giving myself 300 words, 500 words, 1,000 words. My friend Eleanor, when she's doing these stand up smut open mics, will ask everybody whether they're participating, or not, as a speaker or as a reader, to do a haiku, right? To just do a 575 exercise. So sometimes the form, giving yourself some form, is helpful. I mean, I think that I probably have a couple books worth of erotic poetry, erotic prose. Something keeps me still from putting it out there. And I think that's an interesting piece, right? Which is it, I just don't want to have to format it, to go from, I guess, I think one of the things I wanted to share in this conversation is that I find the creative process to be very healing. I feel like it's a way to get through something different than analyzing, is by going through it creatively. And having gone through a lot of grief in my life, a lot of loss in my life, that the place of being able to write about pleasure and create work about pleasure, I think, is what has helped me. Not even I think, I know it's what's helped me not get pulled down by the gravity of humanity and this human journey. And it's so easy to get pulled into the sorrow and into the despair. And I think that there comes a point where how we find our way to bushwhack towards this is going to be okay.
Mm.
It's an individual piece, but Plato, the philosopher, defined eros as that eros is the way that through this type of erotic love, which is through the body, right, as opposed to platonic love or the other types of filial love, brotherly love, but that through erotic love, it's actually the way we connect to the divine. right? And then he says philosophers and poets alike are the ones who connect to eros, and I think that that's a piece for us, right? That we're needing to create our own individual philosophy of how do I keep going and enjoy and choose to enjoy and choose to stay in some levity, right? We like levity, that cupping of the balls. Yeah. So
Yes,
that's my answer.
and yeah, thank you. I just want to observe first of all that you used quite a bit of interesting language in terms of sort of gender roles, in the sense that you started off with a lot of focus on celebrating your own body. And you ended off with, and I'm not putting it out there. I need to get it out there, which is kind of very much the classic, the masculine thing is more that. Like, I want to put my seed out
Mm,
there. I want to go out. And I wanted to just say that as I listen to you, I do believe that this sort of work that we're talking about, this sort of transformation that we're talking about, is about enabling a greater sort of role fluidity.
mm,
And that for men particularly and I think for our partners, to get over the roles that a hard penis kind of defines for us, takes some time, in
mhm,
my experience. So at the heart of it is really moving from driving and giving and thrusting to receiving. That has taken years for me to to I wasn't filming myself like you
mhm,
were for the last 15 years. I was more like wanting to make love to somebody else, and it's been difficult and lovely for me to receive love and that
mhm.
cupping and that stroking and that touching without immediately me springing into action and sort of taking over. Um, I think it's offering enormous possibilities for sort of role fluidity for everyone. When men learn to receive and for us to just enjoy our bodies and to enjoy being touched and being cupped and being stroked and being filmed, if that's the case, and for women to be out there and driving things, of course, women are doing that in so many ways in the world, but somehow in the bedroom, it feels like there's still a bit more transformation to happen. And I think that the experience of lovemaking with soft cocks invites us further into that transformation.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I want to pick up on what you just said too, because I do think, that it is an exploration for the partner. And again, now we're talking, gendered. So I'm talking gendered in terms of as the female partner. When I first had the experience of having my partner really have mostly a soft cock to be with and learning. I think part of also what we see going back to, what do we see in erotica, what do we see in porn is I think that there's this polarity of like dungeon kink kind of play and then maybe like tantra over here and then maybe there's like nurse role play like so I think that there's something around role playing that also has opportunity for expansion because I think a lot of people if they don't come from a performance and I mean not performance anxiety but like an actual performance background are like I'm not an
Mm.
actor that feels really unnatural for me to but I know like for me when I first started connecting to my partner's soft penis I really got into the like ooh, we're in the tent and I'm the snake charmer and I'm going to just like enjoy,
Mm.
that that female archetype of, I can enchant, I'm the enchantress, I'm the, what are the different roles that I can play that aren't me like
Mm.
pretending. It's not me
Mm.
pretending to be you're the king and I'm the queen but I can
Mm.
treat you in a way that feels like this is a royal treatment. I can treat
Yes.
you in a way that feels like, you have come to my tent at the end of your journey by camel. And, I am there waiting for you with a glass of wine to, open up the snake basket and just play, and see how you slither and move. You know, or if I am playing, teacher, if I am playing nurse, that it's an energy inside more than something I'm putting on from the outside. Those
Right.
are things too that, I think are fun to play with as well for the partner, right? As a way to kind of
Yes.
come in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Good.
Mm.
Wonderful. So, are there any places that you've mentioned a few, but as we're kind of bringing things to a close on this, are there any places in particular that you do feel like, wow, this is a place, this is the place to start. If I'm looking for some more representation, begin here. I'm also curious what keywords you used.
I mean, I can't say that I have come across a treasure trove that I can point you to.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you asked me this a little earlier in the conversation. And, my answer is still the same, which is the treasure trove is within.
Mm-hmm.
And that we need to create the external treasure trove. We need to share our stories. We need to become conscious of our stories and then share them. If you found the treasure trove, please tell our guests. But
Yes.
in my experience, there's little snippets here and there, and I still think softcockweek.com has some of the best stuff
Mm-hmm.
that's out there, and it is a treasure trove. But in terms of really setting on fire the erotic imagination, I think we've got walls of prejudice to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got this sort of overwhelm of, when you were talking earlier, it was like there's this big, hard erection in the way, and we can barely see past it to discover everything else that's out
Mm.
there. And those of us who've been blessed with a softening have been invited. And I think almost all of us get blessed with a softening somewhere in our lives. And, some of the experts on male sexuality are saying that soft cocks are getting more common amongst young men as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, so I want to maybe reword that and say all of us who are blessed with the possibility of examining softness and expanding our sexual range and our erotic range, let's start creating the treasure trove of what you call representation.
Mm-hmm.
And the path is made by walking or slithering, as you said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So we are putting out the call.
Mhm.
Misha and I together, those of us who have been working behind the scenes on Softcock Appreciation Week this year, we are putting out the call that we want more. We want more stories. We want more visual art. We want more interpretive dance, whatever it is that is your calling. If you are someone who appreciates and adores and enjoys, the softness, if you are someone who has it, if you're someone who is kind of on the fence about it, using creativity as the healing process can also be, writing a poem to yourself. I love my own softness, right? I love
Exactly.
you. I call them
And
cock formations.
you absolutely have to get there. Otherwise your only choice is the sort of humiliation porn
Right.
stuff, which if it turns you on, it's okay. But if you don't want to go there, you're going to have to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Exactly.
just a requirement.
And the voice in our mind is strong, right? The voice in our mind that says, I'm not, I can't, I shouldn't, I didn't, why this, that those words inside of us can be paralyzing. And
Mm.
one of the ways to counter those, we need to actually write out what you're going to say to get that voice to shut the fuck up. So when it says, I'm not good, no one will love me if I'm hard, to be able to already have written out a couple times, my softness is completely lovable. I love my softness. I love my soft penis. I love my penis exactly the way it is. Others will adore me, in the way that I undulate, and that the more that we have answers. So when that voice, when we have a little performance anxiety in the moment that says, I'm not going to be able to, and thus that already we have some things that we've created to just get that voice to be quiet, that there's a script that we have that feels genuine, right? That is about, hey, buddy, we're here together. We got this. We're good. So,
Yeah.
that's a piece too. So let's get writing. Join us if you're watching this or listening to this, during the week. Then please come join us on Saturday. The link for attending the open mic is in our bio. It's on our site. It's underneath however we're releasing this. If you're listening or watching this after the fact, then still let us know that you're interested. You can reach me at scweek@protonmail.com. I'm always happy to read erotica. Our site will be live for people to have as a resource all the time. We're happy to put things there if you do want to publish something. We have our Softcock love notes that you can always add to, so many different ways, to have as a place to start beginning this new representation that we're looking for. And Mish, I'm just so grateful that you've been on this quest, that you're sharing with us what it has been in so many different levels of that, and inspiring. I mean, I'm really inspired to start looking and seeing more what I can find out there. And maybe that will help me to decide to put some things out into the world, in my own way. I'm going to try and walk my talk on this one too.
I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a huge pleasure to be here, and I really want to appreciate what you and Michelle did before you, to really shift gears in the world
Mm-hmm.
around how we see men and male sexuality, and to really reclaim that vulnerability and that range for us. We're not doing away with the hardness, but we're creating more range for ourselves. And thank you for that. Really
Well,
appreciate it.
thank you. I take that in fullness, and I so appreciate you are a walking model of all of this. Your openness, your truthfulness, your zestiness, your sexiness. It really is an inspiration to me, and I know to people who interact with you. Will you just, before we end, can you just let people know how to connect with you at Recovering Man, so that people know a little bit about that piece too?
Right. So the website, which is really focused on recovering from prostate cancer and erectile dysfunction and all the things, that relationship issues that go with that, is recoveringman.net. And if you want to email me, it's Mish, Mish, at recoveringman.net. And I would love to hear from you, and I would love you to visit the site. And, maybe you have a story to contribute. There is a place to offer contributions. And, there's potential for what we can create together, and I would love to collaborate.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Fabulous. Well, here we are, right? Here we are trying to bring something that is a little bit new, maybe for some a little bit scary, a little bit different, but we're here in community, and what you do with recoveringman.net, what we're doing with Softcock Appreciation Week, what so many other people are trying to do, is really just be places and people who aren't afraid to have these conversations, because that's really number one. Is we come out of the place of feeling like this is only me, into a place of I have I have shared experience that I can both help other people with, and I can receive, like you said, I can receive wisdom about, to help me on my journey. So I'm so appreciative of everything that you do. And with that, I'm going to say thank you, everybody, for watching, listening to this wonderful episode as part of Softcock Appreciation Week 2024. And we look forward to seeing you, hearing from you, connecting with you in all the different ways that we have available for that. So until next time, this is Erica Leroy saying goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.